What is going on, guys? So in this video I want to talk about the Lumenier Lux F7 and why the internet went silent about it. Let's go. So what is going on? Today I want to talk about the Lumenier Lux and why the Slam Nasty just fell out of the sky, and why I think the Lumenier Lux has a fatal flaw that nobody talks about. When that flight controller came out, everybody was like, oh my god, dual camera craziness, they loved it. And all of a sudden the internet went silent, and I think there's a fatal flaw that nobody seems to be talking about. Everybody that I've talked to about it have stopped flying it for one reason or another, and usually it's this reason, and I'm going to cover that today. But because I only have a limited amount of time, I need to go fix my boiler, so I'm going to drag you guys along. Welcome to my basement. It is grody down here. This is a very old house, so as you can see, it's not constructed like many of your other basements. And internet, meet my boiler. We need to fix this thing. This guy right here is causing some issues, so we're gonna pull that off and replace it with a new one. All right, so why am I down here? Why am I doing this? This is the Aqua Stat, and this is what controls the boiler. It tells it when to turn on and when to turn off. And it's a separate function of each zone when those are told to turn on and turn off. So, for example, this boiler is set to go down to 175 degrees and up to 110, 115. And it just stays there. And this doesn't matter what time of year it is. Those are the temperatures that this boiler is going to be. It's going to stay in between those. What is going on with this unit is the contacts and the electromagnet are going bad, and they are causing just a ridiculously high power bill. I don't know how, but this was the original one here. I pulled it out and put a replacement one in. The replacement one went bad. The replacement one was a used one. That's why it went bad. So now I put this one back in to replace the replacement one, and I bought a new one. The new one works differently, and I'll get into that. The old one, for whatever reason, is running my electric bill through the roof. I think it's because of the electromagnet. Maybe it's just got a bad contact and it's just sitting there arcing and sending power through. I don't know, but that's what's going on with that. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to shut off power. All right, so the furnace is off. I turned that off at the breaker, and I can double check it here. All my zones and everything are shut off. The other thing that I can do is on the side of the boiler, turn off the main power here, just to make sure everything's good. So with that, let's go ahead and pull this apart. Now, the way the new one works is it doesn't have a low end. It's just when this thing goes cold, it just goes cold. It'll go down to 0 degrees or whatever the ambient temperature is down here. So if nothing's calling for heat, it doesn't do anything. But as soon as something calls for heat, it'll fire the boiler up, it'll run, it'll get the temperature, and it'll shut off at whatever temperature I set it. That'll allow the zones to service the rest of the house. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off. I've got, there's three sets of wires that run into this thing. I've got this powers the pump and the burner. I got a wire in the top here. This is the wire from, where the hell does this come from? This is power from the panel. And then I've got a signal here. This is a thermostat wire from the main panel over there, and all that works in, collectively. And for me to sit here and explain all that, too much, because I'm here to talk about the Lumenier. So, I want to talk about the Lumenier Lux and what is going on with that. So as you guys have seen in a previous video, and I'll throw the link right over there, I went ahead and pulled that guy apart for a motor desync issue. And what had happened was I ended up firing up the quad, which I left the props on just to show you guys. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Highly dangerous. I understand the risks that I took to show you, but definitely don't do that. I don't want to hear any stories about any of you guys getting hurt doing stuff dumb like that. And I understand, like, total risk, just stupid. But what had happened is when I fired that thing up, the 3-volt regulator fried. And I went into this whole spiel, which I didn't even put into that video. The reason I didn't put it into that video was because while editing the video, I very quickly realized that that theory, and I'll speak about what I thought the initial theory was, why that theory was wrong, like way wrong. And what actually I think happened, and I think it's a fatal flaw inside of the flight controller that has caused it. So, yeah. All right, so the first thing we do is there's a little ring here, and we pull this ring, well, at least loosen this ring first, and then you can pull it right off, and then that wire should pull right out. So that's one down. That's a pump wire, and we're just gonna sit this guy off to the side, and then we're gonna pull the thermostat off. So my theory was that the VTX, the power wire, because it's stranded, was only held on by a couple of wires. And what had happened was that it was allowing a direct short to ground intermittently. And then when I finally pulled that VTX, that wire broke. So was it that? I don't know for certain. But at the time, I didn't know for certain. While editing that video, you can clearly see that that power wire is on there pretty good. There's no reason that that should have broke, but it did. But I don't think that break had any help with taking that thing down to nothing and allowing it to break. Okay, so this is all the wiring out of this guy, and then this guy should not just pull out like that. There's a clamp back here that should have been holding it in place, and it wasn't doing its job. So that's issue number 2. All right, so this new guy comes with a lot of stuff here that we're not going to use. They want you to use this stuff. I never use that stuff. We've got our, okay, that's our ground lead if we want to use that. So we're going to set that to the side. So with this guy, we're going to open this up, and we got to install a new ground. So on that flight controller, I don't think it was the power wire that was causing anything. What I do think is it's a fatal flaw. The issue that I ran into was that a small resistor or a capacitor has come loose, and what that has done is allow whatever power was going to go through that certain section of rail to just go straight through the inductor from power to ground. So that inductor gets stupid hot, and it eventually fried. Or at least the 3-volt regulator has fried. The inductor still gets hot, so I think it might, even though it's brown, I think it might still be good. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm gonna replace that inductor, that's for sure. And I'm gonna reflow probably all those capacitors and all those resistors. And again, I'm still learning all these parts. I mean, I know what the parts are, but I'm still learning like what goes where on the flight controllers, because all those parts are tiny and they're not labeled, so it's like it's kind of guesswork. There's like a couple inductors on there, there's a couple of resistors, and there's a couple of capacitors. I might be wrong, they could all be capacitors for all I know. But again, I'm learning, I'm teaching you guys, or showing you guys as I go, because I think it's interesting. You know, much like this stuff. Like, you guys probably are not interested in it, but it might be fun to watch. And that's up to you. So watch it if you want to watch it. Don't watch it if you don't want to watch it. It's all to that. So, but anyway, so yeah, that's what I think happened with that thing. That little resistor comes loose, and I think that happened in the crash, or a crash rather. So yeah, I think that little resistor comes loose in the crash. It fries the 3-volt regulator, and then the whole flight controller no longer works. So what does everybody do at that point? Throw them out. So I don't think there's malice behind it. I just think that for whatever reason, their heat set process or something went wrong in manufacturing. Maybe it was a different solder that they used. Maybe there's imperfections in it. I couldn't tell you, but I do know that that is an issue and other people have had it. So that might be why that flight controller is no longer spoke about. The other issue that I heard from somebody, they says, and this I did have as well, I had major video issues. And I think it's because the ground traces are not large enough to support what's being asked of it. So what they had suggested to me is that they run everything, instead of to a ground pad, they'll run it to battery ground. And that helps to clear up the noise along with the capacitor, as long as you run that across the battery lines. But yeah, that's the deal with that. So I've ordered another one. It's here. I wanted to be working on that right now, but I'm down here for the duration of whatever this takes me to fix it. And yeah, so I figured that it'd be cool bringing you guys along and showing you this. And it is not super cold outside, so I don't need to like race to get this done. The amount of times I've been down here trying to get this stupid thing fixed, and just, you know, running into this broke or that broke or this doesn't work. I mean, I've had spent too many hours down here with this thing. Yeah, so most everybody that I've talked to about that flight controller, they have all stopped using it. And I even went on Instagram and threw up a post about, you know, if anybody knows the specific inductor and has a part number, you know, to shoot the part number over to me. And I didn't get any part numbers, but I got offered at least, I think, like 4 or 6 dead flight controllers to have for parts, because anybody who was using it stopped using it. So I do have some parts, flight controllers coming in, so I'm gonna fix the old one. I'm gonna put the new one on. And why am I doing that? Because I'm not ready to throw this flight controller under the bus quite yet. I don't think I tested it for long enough, and so we're gonna see. So if you're thinking about, you know, joining along and just trying to do this stuff yourself, I mean, it's dangerous, but if you know what you're doing, it's not that bad. And there's certain codes to follow, and you know, this is going to have to be checked by a licensed electrician and all that sort of stuff. So there's that. So if you're ever doing this, you make little hooks out of these wires, and what you do is you hook the screw, but you want to hook the screw so that the hook is going clockwise. So when you tighten it down, it tightens into the mount and not out of it. You know, the more you know, I guess, right? All All right, so what I'm doing right now is I am wiring in the boiler motor. This is when this is fed 120 volts, it fires up the pump. Well, it fires up the motor turns the pump brings in the oil, and it also turns the fan, and it also powers the master control, and then the master control fires the boiler, and because a fan is spinning inside, it kind of wafts the flames as it feeds oil into it, and that is how you get one big ass fire. Okay, so I want this guy out of the way here. I don't know why they do a freaking bladed terminal inside of the bottom of this. This drives me nuts. It's not even like I have the option of using a bladed terminal or not. It's like they soldered on a bladed terminal, and I guess, being who I am, I could probably unsolder the bladed terminal and put a screw in there somehow, but I just want my boiler fixed. That's it. That's all I want. I want my boiler fixed. Okay, so that's set except for this ground lead. We're going to come back to that. The next thing that we want is, and I'm surprised they didn't supply us with one. Usually they do, but a little rubber collet or something to protect this wire as we put it in, but we'll come back to that. We're going to install the power leads for L1 and L2. And for this guy, because this guy gets in the way, we're just going to add this ring first and then land our wires and then come back to it. And because we're going to do the ground last, we're going to hold them with that. So we want white on L2. This wire is a pain in the ass. It's just it's aluminum wire. It's thin gauge. It's stranded. It's a pain in the ass. I don't like dealing with that at all. Okay, so now that we got that, we're going to run our ground lead right here, and we're going to tie this all in together. And I didn't bring my linesman pliers down here, and that was stupid, because to do something like this you need lineman pliers, and I can do it with regular pliers, but those things are just so much better. But what I'm doing here is just grab all three wires, and these are only copper and they're soft, so I might break one like I just did there. So that sucks. Expect that to happen again. And what we want to do here is just wrap them together and then cut off all the excess on the end there, and what that will allow the wire nut to seat down in there, and it'll kind of keep these things together. And this is always easier with new wire. Clearly this is not new wire, and it's definitely easier with lineman pliers, which I think I'm going to stop talking about. I'm going to go get. Let's go get them. Okay, linesman pliers, so much easier. Watch it not be now. Just made a big stink about linesman pliers. Like I said, you just grab them, twist them like that. Okay, now you can cut the little slack ends, and now this wire nut will fit way easier. You just tighten that guy down like that, we're good. And then we're gonna set this guy in here like this out of the way. Okay, so we got our neutral on B2. We got our hot lead on B1. We got a ground wire coming from the burner, which mates up with the box and out to the main panel. So everything's grounded, everything's hooked up. We got our L2 is hooked up to our neutral, L1 is hooked up to our positive. And now I just got to get a little kind of foamy thing to put this through and then land it on the TT that back there. That's the thermostat wire in. Now we just put this little rubber guy, little rubber grommet in there, and this protects this from the jagged razor blade edges of this stamped steel, just like that. And we can actually pull this guy out a little bit, just like that. Okay, so I think we're good. Just gonna do one little final overview and then I'm gonna power everything on. So let's see what happens. So we're here at the panel. Now here, the moment of the truth. Okay, that's good so far. So, I'm just waiting for this guy to get up to temperature. I got 3 zones calling for heat right now, so I shut all those off. Once this gets up to temperature, I'm going to turn those zones back on. They're going to pull in cold water and then cool this guy down again, and then I'm going to make sure that it fires this thing back up. So I'm not going to have you sit through that, but that's what I'm going to do for the next few minutes. I will see you at the bench where we can take a closer look at that flight controller. So I know we were totally way off in the weeds today, and I want to thank you for watching this far, and I want to reward you for doing so. I really appreciate it, and I want to give back. So I have a TBS Source 1. I think it's a version 2. It's a freestyle frame. If you want the frame, go ahead and comment below. Let me know you want the frame, and the first commenter that says I want the frame gets the frame. Just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's my little way of giving back to you guys for hanging out and watching these videos. I really appreciate it. So let's go hit the bench quick, and I want to show you that flight controller. All right, so if I get any of these components wrong, please let me know in the comment section below. I've done a bunch of research, and I'm fairly confident that I know what each of them are. But because they're not labeled and they're tiny, I might get a couple of them wrong or whatever. So yeah, definitely let me know. But anyway, the problem child here, this is an inductor. This, I believe, is a crystal oscillator. This guy here is an inductor. I have no idea what size, as well as the rest of these. But over here, I think we got a resistor, a capacitor, a capacitor, a resistor, a capacitor, and a capacitor. And I think these are 2 more tiny inductors. And again, this is the 3-volt regulator. It works together as one unit. What I think has happened when this quad went down, one of the many times, this guy here, this capacitor on the lower section of it, closest to the tip of the tweezers here, that came loose. And I think that just made this whole thing fail. So that sends all the power through the inductor. This thing gets superheated because it's just taking voltage from VBAT and sending it directly back to ground. So that's what I think has happened, and I think this is an issue with a lot of these boards, is that these capacitors just come loose, it fries this regulator, and then the whole flight controller doesn't work. But to me, that's not a valid excuse for throwing away a flight controller, because the 5-volt regulator's still good. We got the chips on the other side still good. So my plan is to replace this inductor, to reflow this capacitor,
and to give it another shot. Yeah, so that's what I think happened to this thing. I really think that capacitor came up, and for whatever reason, now we fried some other components. Yeah, anyway, so I'm hoping the next video to get out. I've got kind of a secret project that I've been sitting on for quite a number of months. I want to introduce that. Not like I want to add another project at this moment to what I got going on, but I've been sitting on it for too long, and that's going to happen. But I definitely want to get the Slam Nasty put back together. So now that I don't have to fix the boiler anymore, I think next week I'm going to put this back together. And then eventually I'm going to replace these parts. So that's going to be another video. So there's 3 videos that are coming up soon. And I got a whole host of other ones. So stay tuned. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, definitely go ahead and do so. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up. Always something different around here on this channel. I like to mix things up, and I know some of you don't like that. You like to see one project completed after another, and to me, I like to bounce around. It's who I am. Like if I get sick of something and like I force myself to work through it, like I just don't want to do it anymore. So if I bounce around, everything's new and fresh to me, and you know, it's fun. So that's just the way I am. So hopefully you're into that. But yeah, so anyway, again, mega thanks for watching. If you have, if you're still with us here, and the frame I mentioned earlier, for those of you who caught it and didn't skip by, it's a version 3. It's the newest one. So yeah, enjoy. And with that, listen, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, if you found it entertaining, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once and it's fun. And I'll catch you later. Peace.